What is mind? Do we really have a non-physical soul? Is thought simply an aspect of physical matter or just a byproduct of nerves being stimulated in the brain? How can we be sure that other people aren't just sophisticated robots? How can we tell that they are actually conscious? All of these questions fall into the category of philosophy of mind. Now, philosophy of mind is different from psychology, although they are closely related. Psychology is the scientific study of human behavior and thought based on observing people, often under experimental conditions. In contrast, philosophy of mind is not an experimental subject. It does not involve making actual scientific observation. Philosophy concentrates on the analysis of our concept. Philosophers of mind are concerned with conceptual issues which arise when we think about the mind. A psychologist might investigate schizophrenia by examining patients, running tests on them, and so on. A philosopher, on the other hand, would ask conceptual questions like what is the mind or what does it mean by mental illness? Such questions cannot be answered by examination of actual cases alone. They require us to analyze the meaning of the term in which they are expressed. To illustrate this point, consider this example. A neuropsychologist investigating human thought might make an observation of the pattern of nerve stimulation in the brain. A philosopher of mind would ask the basic conceptual question of whether the activity of these nerves amount to thinking or whether there is some feature of our concept of thought which means that it cannot be reduced to a physical occurrence. Or to put it in more traditional way, do we have mind distinct from our bodies? In this video, we will examine some of the central debates in the philosophy of mind, concentrating on the question of whether a physical explanation of the mind is adequate and on whether we can have knowledge of other people's mind. The mind-body problem. In a way we describe ourselves and the world, we usually make a distinction between the mental and physical aspect. Mental aspects are such things like feeling, deciding, dreaming, imagining, wishing, and so on. Physical ones include feet, limbs, brain, cup of tea, the Empire State Building, and so on. When we do something such as play tennis, we use both our mental and our physical aspect. We think about the rule of the game, where our opponent is likely to play the next shot, and on we move our bodies. But there is a real division between mind and body, or it's just a convenient way of talking about ourselves. The problem of explaining the true relationship between mind and body is known as mind-body problem. Those who believe that mind and body are separate things, that each of us has both a mind and a body, are called mind-body dualists. Those who believe that the mental is in same sense the same thing as physical, that we are nothing more than flesh and blood and have no separate mind substance, are called physicalists. Now let's talk about dualism first. Dualism. Dualism, as we have seen, involves a belief in the existence of non-physical substance, the mental. A dualist typically believes that the body and mind are distinct substances which interact with each other but remain separate. Mental processes such as thinking are not same as physical one, such as brain cell firing. Mental processes occur in the mind, not in the brain. The mind is not the living brain. Mind-body dualism is a view held by many people, particularly by those who believe that it is possible to survive over bodily death, either by living in some kind of spirit world or by being reincarnated into new body. Both of these views presuppose that human beings are not just physical beings, but rather that our most important part is a non-physical mind, or if we put in a religious sense, soul. René Descartes is probably the most famous mind-body dualist. Such dualism is often called Cartesian dualism, Cartesian being the adjective formed from Descartes' name. A strong motive for believing dualism to be true is the difficulty most of us have in seeing how purely physical things such as brain could give rise to complex pattern of feeling and thought which we call consciousness. How could something purely physical feel melancholy or appreciate a painting? Such questions give dualism an initial possibility as a solution to mind-body problem. However, there are a number of powerful criticisms of it as a theory. Criticism of dualism cannot be scientifically investigated. One criticism sometimes targeted at mind-body dualism is that it does not really help us to understand the nature of the mind. All it tells us is that there is a non-physical substance in each of us which think, dream, experience and so on. But it is alleged by physicalists a non-physical mind could not be investigated directly. In particular, it could not be investigated scientifically because science only deals with the physical world, or we could examine would be its effect on the world. Against this, the dualist might reply that we can observe the world, we can observe the mind through introspection, that is through considering our own thought, and we can and do investigate the mind indirectly through its effect on the physical world. Most science work by inferring the cause of observed effect. Scientific investigation of non-physical mind would be an instance of this same type of approach, beside which mind-body dualism at least has the benefit of explaining how it might be possible to survive bodily death, something which physicalism cannot do without introducing the idea of the resurrection of body after death. Evolution. It is generally accepted that human beings evolved from simpler life form. However, a dualist will find it difficult to explain how this could have been so. Basically, very simple life forms such as amoeba do not have mind, whereas human being and some other higher animal do have them. How then could amoeba give rise to creatures which have mind? Where could this mind substance have suddenly come from? And why does the evolution of mind so closely parallel to the evolution of the brain? One way in which a dualist could answer this criticism is to say that even amoeba can have a limited mind of some sort, and the mind evolved in a parallel with the evolution of animal bodies. Or the dualist could go a step further and say that every physical thing also has a mind of some sort. This view is also known as panpsychism. Now, according to panpsychism, even stone have very basic mind. The development of human mental ability can be explained in terms of it being a combination of physical substance and thus merging of simpler mind to create a more complex one. However, few dualists are sympathetic to such an approach because it blurred the distinction between human being and what we consider to be inanimate world. Interaction. The most serious difficulty the dualists face is that of explaining how two such different substances, mind and body, could possibly interact. It is clear in the dualist view that, for example, I can have a thought and then this thought can give rise to a certain action. For instance, I can think that I will scratch my nose and then my finger move up to my nose and scratch it. The difficulty for dualists is to show how precisely or how purely mental thought can lead to physical scratch. This difficulty is made more pronounced by the fact that events in the brain are very closely linked with mental events. Why do we need to introduce the idea of mind as distinct from the body when it is obvious that, for example, serious damage to the brain could lead to mental deficiency? If mind and body are really distinct, why is this so? Contradict a very basic scientific principle. Another aspect of the difficulty of explaining interaction is that it seems to contradict a very basic principle of science. Most scientists who are physicalists assume that every change in an object could be explained by physical event. The cause of all physical events are themselves physical. So for instance, if a nerve cell in someone's brain fires, a neuropsychologist will look for a physical cause of this. But if a pure thought, which is an activity of mind, can lead to action, then some mere mental event must directly lead to physical one. Dualists are left having to justify revising quite a few basic assumptions of science. Of course, they may feel that they can justify this revision on the ground that dualism is self-evidently true, but is there any doubt about this? It seems more sensible to assume that it is a theory of dualism that is at fault, and not the scientific assumption which has produced such fruitful results in the scientific research to date. So guys, that's for today. In the next video we will talk about dualism without interaction and also understand physicalism in detail. If you enjoy this video, then don't forget to subscribe and like this video, and let me know, do you really think dualism is good theory for mind and body problem? Thanks.